What does luxury mean to you? That's a question that is really difficult to answer, and it's also really personal because some people are more interested in what luxury gives you, how luxury feels, how it makes you feel, and some are honestly more interested in the brand. And this all-new Kia K900 really bucks the luxury car trend because under this Alex Autos logo is a regular old Kia logo. Aside from the logo under the hood, everything else about the 2019 K900 is exactly what you'd expect in a luxury car that costs perhaps about $80,000. Only it's worth noting that this vehicle's price range is basically just under $60,000 to basically $64,000, considerably less than comparably equipped competitors. Under this hood, we have a twin-turbo 3.3-liter V6 engine, produces 365 horsepower and a ton of torque. It's mated to an in-house designed 8-speed automatic transmission and standard all-wheel drive. And the all-wheel drive system is not sending power to the front wheels by default, it's sending power to the rear wheels, just like you'd expect out of a BMW or a Jaguar. The rear-wheel drive design is instantly identifiable when you look at the side profile of the K900 because this looks very much like the average luxury sedan in America, with that long hood proportion, the long distance between the front doors and that front axle right there, and of course the engine that we have under the hood like I said before. In terms of overall size, this is just over 200 inches long, so it's a little bit long for a mid-size luxury sedan like a 5 Series or an E-Class, and that's why we have more rear legroom back here than we find in the average mid-size luxury car. But in the United States, we don't have too many full-size luxury sedans that are this size because most of the full-size options come to this country as long wheelbase editions only, although this is really not that much different in terms of overall size than a Jaguar XJ. The rear end design is a little bit different than the last time we saw this K900 in Korea, also labeled the K9. We have LED tail lamp modules with LED turn signals, but we don't have progressive elements because they're not allowed in America the way that they would fit into this vehicle. The backup light is right down here at the bottom, and we have actual true dual exhausts in this vehicle, not some sort of funky openings that are integrated into the bumper that look like exhausts like you'd actually find in a modern Audi. If luxury means interior refinement, then we definitely find that inside the cabin of the K900 for 2019. We have height adjustable shoulder belts, power 4-way adjustable headrests. These are powered both in the up and down direction and in the forward and backward direction. And then if we move to the back seats in the K900, we find power 4-way adjustable headrests right back here too. And they have a butterfly functionality so that way you can more easily rest right back there in the back seat. The model that we're in is the VIP package, so we also have powered rear seats. These recline, and they also have adjustable lumbar support, heating, and ventilation. Build quality in the K900 is excellent, easily the equal of any of the mid-sized luxury sedans we see in America, and actually above a notable number of them as well. So I think the interior in this vehicle is definitely better done than the Infiniti Q70 or the Lexus GS, or arguably even some of the European options. The front doors have a lot of stitched materials going on. Not all of it is leather, but we do have separately hand-stitched components. We have a 900-watt Lexicon sound system and a lot of real wood trim in this cabin. And I love the way that the real wood trim has been styled. So if we zoom in a little bit more closely, you can see that that wood trim is actually sort of horizontal inside the cabin, and it mates with the wood trim over here on the dashboard, and all the seams are really done very, very well. The attention to detail is absolutely excellent here. This is real wood trim. It has kind of a funny name actually. If you're looking on the options list for the K900, they call this engineered wood. That sounds a little bit peculiar, makes it sound like it's fake wood. It actually is not. It is real wood. Basically what they've done is they've taken sheets of veneer, stacked them up, and then they've cut them at an angle so that way you can see this active grain running through the wood. Now, not all the wood in this cabin is real actually. If we zoom out of here and then we move on over to the steering wheel, because of the eccentric shape right here, this section is actually imitation wood, but it's designed to look exactly like the wood trim that's right over there on the dash. In the dashboard, we find a standard 12.3-inch color touchscreen infotainment system. This is very similar to the software that we see in other Kia models, only it's been adapted to this large and high-resolution horizontal aspect ratio screen. So we still have basically the same mapping interface, same direct access buttons right down here, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay integration, and the system is very snappy. You can either touch the screen or you can use the control knob in the center of the dashboard, much like the last generation K900. But the interior actually has a second 12.3-inch LCD. It's right here for the instrument cluster, although the corners are a little bit rounded off right like that. These displays are basically the same size as what we see in the E-Class, the S-Class, and the Mercedes-Benz CLS as well, but because of their arrangement, for some reason this one, especially in the dash, looks a little bit smaller because they're not in one linear bank right across the dash. But we do have basically the same kind of screen sizes that we find in those expensive Mercedes models. The LCD instrument cluster has a few different themes. We have turn-by-turn navigation directions, but not a moving map display like we find in some luxury cars, the status of the vehicle's active safety systems, and the ability to change between a few different themes. So we have a sort of sporty theme right there, a refreshing theme is what they call that one. It gives us these interesting toggles. These actually appear to rotate sort of up and down as your speed increases and decreases. There's also a violet theme, which is very similar to the other one, but is violet. And then we have the ability to automatically change the gauge display depending on the drive mode that we're in. This display is not standard. You will find it on the model with the VIP package, however, and it has an interesting touch for dealing with blind spots. In addition to the standard blind spot management system, which tells you, beeps at you, there's a little icon on the side view mirror, we also have a camera display that replaces the tachometer over here when we're turning right and the speedometer over here when we're turning left. That is a really thoughtful touch, and it's very elegantly done inside that instrument cluster. Taking a closer look at the steering wheel, we again have that sort of eccentric shape to the faux wood trim on the back of the wheel. It's the only fake piece of wood in this cabin. Leather-wrapped airbag cover, paddles on the back of the steering column, down over here on the left, up over there on the right. Direct access buttons for some of your media functions over here on this side, and then the radar adaptive cruise control over here on the right. This button and this knob are how we control that multifunction display. That's pretty similar to other Kia models in America. The K900 wasn't designed for America, at least not initially, and that is obvious when you hop in the back because of how nicely this rear passenger compartment is appointed. In the mid-size luxury sedan segment in America, it's not that common to be chauffeured around. But in the home market of Korea, that's definitely more common. And that's why far more K900s are sold every month than every year in the United States. And that's also why we find all these controls right here in the center console. I have a 14-way power seat on this side. I can recline the seat. I can move the seat bottom cushion up and down. I have access to a 4-way adjustable lumbar support, a 4-way electric adjusting headrest with those butterfly headrests right there, and I even have some little memory buttons right there to help bring it back into position. I also have 3-zone automatic climate control, not 4-zone like we find in full-size luxury sedans, but I can control that infotainment screen from right back here in the center console. I also have a wireless charger for my smartphone, heated and ventilated seats right back here, manual side shades, and a powered rear sunshade right back there. If you're looking for a vehicle that has a little bit more room in the back because you really want your passengers to be more comfortable, or if you're looking for a vehicle for executive transport, I would definitely get this over a Chrysler 300 or a Lincoln Continental or that Cadillac CT6 because it's quite simply more comfortable and nicely put together back here than either of those competitive options. On the other hand, you might also want to take a look at something like this if you want a little bit more room for your family and you want that luxurious feel up front. So if you're shopping for an E-Class or a 5 Series and you want more room for rear-facing child seats especially, they're going to fit a little bit better inside this cabin than in some of those German options just due to the overall size of the K900. At the beginning of the video, I asked you what luxury meant to you. Does it mean the impeccable finish quality that we find in this interior, the nice materials like the suede headliner, the stitched leather uppers on the doors, the controls that we find here in the center console, the liberal amount of wood? Does it have to do with the build quality precision, the fact that these seams are all very expertly done, nothing is going wrong in the leather, everything is done to a very high level in here? Or does it have to do with that badge again? Because you won't find an interior that is put together this nicely for the same dollar amount in some of the European competitors. They will have nice interiors, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to be to the same level for the same price tag that we find in the K900. For instance, if I draw your attention over here, we find height adjustable shoulder belts for the driver and front passenger. We don't find those on a BMW 5 Series at any price, even the M5. We then have soft touch materials right here for this portion of the B-pillar in the car all the way down to the floor. Those are things that we don't find in most of the European competition. Unlike many European luxury sedans, we actually have a spare tire out back. This again is likely because this vehicle was designed for the home market of Korea as well as China, so we even have space for a full-size spare tire if you want to take out that donut and put a real one back there. Out on the road, the K900 delivers exactly what you'd expect out of a luxury sedan. And And there are really no caveats actually versus the last generation K900, where you might say this delivers 90% of the luxury sedan experience for 80% of the cost. This really does actually feel like a solid European luxury sedan, albeit a large one. This does not feel quite as small as some of the European competitors because it's not. This is, again, about as long as some of those short wheelbase full-size luxury sedans, so definitely a little bit longer than something like an E or a 5. Now I have to say that on the downside for me, Americanizing the K9 into the K900 has meant making the suspension a little bit firmer. Correction, a lot firmer. And I'm a little bit disappointed by that in a way, and I realize that sounds crazy at first, but there really are no truly softly sprung sedans in America left anymore. If you want a Mercedes-Benz S-Class with the air suspension ride experience, you actually have to buy a Mercedes-Benz S-Class in order to get that. You can't really find a vehicle in this price category that has that soft, really floaty highway ride to it. And interestingly enough, the Korean market K9 has that same kind of ride. It floats over roadway imperfections. It is a really well polished suspension. If you want to know more about the overall drive experience in the K900, then stay tuned because we should have the first full review available on video of this vehicle, because I actually am going to be driving this vehicle home. So expect that video in about a week. We will have our full 0 to 60 test times, 60 to 0 braking scores, our complete usual grading system for ride, handling, cabin noise figures, etc. So be sure and stay tuned for that. As with the first generation Kia K900, the second generation is all about value. How much is luxury worth to you? Well, this starts at $59,900, which is unquestionably expensive for a Kia in the United States. But when you look at the laundry list of features that we get standard in that base model, getting those identical features in some of the competitive models could cost you $10,000, $15,000, or perhaps even $20,000 more than this Kia right here. And if you want more gadgets and gizmos on the inside, like the power rear seats, which you won't find in any mid-size luxury sedan in America, that will set you back $63,900 for the fully loaded VIP model, and that's what we've been driving today. There are a few things you need to know. First thing, Kia tells us that the pricing is estimated at this point, but I expect pricing to really hold firm because otherwise they probably would have said $60,000, not $59,900. The second thing you need to know, and this is really important when it comes to luxury vehicles, is how Kia has gotten to this low sticker price. When you start building a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi or even a Volvo, you'll notice that there is an extraordinarily long list of options, features, gadgets that you can choose, a lot of different colors that you can make your vehicle come in, different interior color combinations, etc. And Kia has really streamlined that process in order to help deliver the value and the low price that we see in the K900. Kia's method of bringing down the base price on the K900 is, in my opinion, the right way to do this. And it's very different than what we see in Lincoln and Cadillac competitive models, because Kia does not reduce the quality of the interior parts. They don't take stitched parts and make them injection molded in cheaper versions. They don't remove features from the interior, etc. Instead, they limit options. So when you take a look at a Cadillac CT6, which starts less than the K900, but goes up to way more expensive than the K900, there are more ways you can configure that vehicle. For instance, if you wanted a red K900, you'd have to paint one yourself because red is simply not a color option. We get white, we get black, we get sort of a wet concrete look, and then we get a dark gray. If you want any colors other than that, you're on your own. And there are 4 different interior color combinations, and they're pretty much dictated by the exterior colors and the trim level that you get. So if you want a black vehicle, but you want a different colored interior, you may not be able to get that particular option. That's one of the ways that Kia has gotten us to this low starting point. However, it also means that Kia has been able to deliver us excellent value and a very long standard warranty, much longer than the average luxury car in America. To some extent, we find something similar going on with Lexus and Infiniti competitors in the mid-size luxury segment, but it's going on to a much, much greater degree in the Kia K900. And that's also one of the reasons that this is less expensive than a Genesis G90. Be sure and let me know what you think about that down there in the comments section below. Personally, I don't mind the fully loaded way that the K900 comes because I love my cars fully loaded. And if you really, really want a K900 but you don't want a power rear sunshade, just don't press the button and don't turn it on. If you really want a K900 but you don't want the powered rear seats, now that is an option that you can select because you just get the base model, not the VIP option, and there you go. But if for some reason you wanted one of these and you didn't want the really glorious Lexicon sound system, sorry, it's just going to have that sound system. Be sure and let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Find us over at facebook.com, Twitter, all those fun social things. Click up there to the top of your screen if you want to support this channel, and I hope you do. And I'll see you next week.